Welcome to another edition of Doctor and the Dude. I am Dr. Jim Siebert, and joining me is Josh Morganman. Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, Dr. Jim. Good to be back with you. This is my favorite part of the week.
You know what? Mine too. Now, today's going to be a little bit on the fun side for us because not only do you go to the Gulf Coast during hurricane season, but you're now going to be building a home, and I'm going to call it your hurricane home. And we're going to be talking about some of the safety things that you've been considering while you're going through this process.
Well, yeah, I've had to be very mindful of this because, as someone who hunts hurricanes a lot, it would really undermine my credibility if I built a house that was not hurricane ready.
Yeah, that's true. So let's talk about the storm surge and flooding, which is the first thing you were considering when actually choosing the location for your house.
Yeah, so this is coastal Mississippi where elevation is always a concern. So I had to think about, okay, the property where I'm buying, where I was getting, how high is it? So this property is 19 feet above sea level, the property you see behind me, which for coastal Mississippi is actually pretty high. And on top of that, I'm going to raise the house 4 feet above that. So I'm going to have 23 feet above sea level. Now, this is only a block and a half from the Gulf of Mexico, but actually that's pretty good elevation. And what that means is, except in really, really extreme instances, like, for example, a repeat of Hurricane Katrina, this area will be fine. Now, it's not 100% guarantee. Water got up here during Katrina, which was the highest storm surge in the history of the Western Hemisphere. But that, for me, is a risk that or a calculated risk that I'm willing to take to stand on my front lawn and just see the Gulf of Mexico sparkling down the street every day. But, we all have our level of risk. That's the one that I'm okay with.
Yeah, I had the same issue when we were building our house in Houston. That above a certain level, you were probably going to be safe. Like for example, in Hurricane Harvey, everybody knew that anything below like 105 feet or so, you were going to have flooding concerns. And I had my house at about 107, so I had an extra foot there. And actually, the water came all the way up into our lawn, but our home luckily didn't get flooded. And it wasn't by chance. We had planned it just like how you were planning it.
Wow, that's a close call. Like, I was obsessing about how many feet to raise the house, and I was like, okay, difference between 3 and 4. I'm going to go for 4 because what if it comes up to 4?
Right. And in that one little foot of difference, we're talking about a lot of difference in the possible damage, too. Okay, so that's storm surge. That's only half of the issue. Let's talk about wind. And also, that's a big issue, especially how close you are to the coast.
Oh yeah, so this is Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. So not only was it the ground zero for Hurricane Katrina, but also Camille in 1969, which was a Category 5. When the center of that hurricane passed over this town, the estimated winds were 175 miles an hour. So if you're going to build here, you need to anticipate some crazy wind. And I'm lucky I'm working with a great builder, Bo Ladner of Paramount Contracting, and he has guided me through the process. He's a great builder on this Gulf Coast here who's done a lot in terms of making houses that are hurricane resistant. And he's guiding me through the process of what we need to do to make this house resistant to these forces.
Having the right builder is everything because I had the same issue when we were building our house in Houston. My builder, I hadn't thought of this, but he said, let's put these extra fasteners between the roof and the house, and we'll do it all the way around because typically when the wind comes from a hurricane, it gets underneath the roof just a little bit, and then it rips the roof off, thus destroying the house. And so if you can keep that roof secure, it makes a huge difference. And I know that's something that you've already considered.
100%. That's one of the main things that we're doing. So we're doing a few things. So one is that we want to make sure that we're going to reinforce the walls, and we're using zip plywood, which is an especially strong kind. We're going to use hardy siding, which is a composite material which is resistant to impact from flying debris. Then we're going to use custom cable tie downs to make sure that the walls and the roof are firmly fastened to the foundation to resist what you were just talking about, that uplift effect, which is that destructive thing that happens in high winds. And then to top it off, a metal roof, which is the kind that if you live in hurricane country, they're a little more expensive, but man, those things, if they're properly fastened, they get through the worst of hurricanes. And one last thing I want to talk about is windows really fast. You got two routes with that. Either use impact glass, which it resists shattering when it's hit by flying debris, or coverings. I'm doing the latter because I like the way shutters look. It gives the house a more traditional look. As long as you can cover them with solid shutters, you're good.
You know, I've seen all of this after the hurricanes. I'm typically going into relief work afterwards, like last year in Louisiana, in one neighborhood, you know, where they got hit so many different times with storms, hurricanes, and they had all kinds of issues. But one neighborhood, the entire neighborhood either had complete damage or some damage from trees or the wind, except for the one house that had a metal roof, and it was like nothing had happened there. And that's when I became a believer in that.
Totally. Yeah, no, and I've seen the same kind of unbelievable performance with those metal roofs. In Category 5 Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas, the houses with the metal roofs withstood crazy wind.
Mm. You know, and if you are building your house now or you're thinking about building a home, this is all great advice, but all of this is also good advice because some of these things you can actually do after the home has been built, especially like the shutters.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, Dr. Jim. There's things you could do to retrofit the house, to make sure that it's going to get through these storms, and it's a good thing to think about because a lot of times with these things, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Well, and you always see video of people taking plywood and putting them into the windows. And to me, that's the worst thing that I want to do. One, because it's so hot, they're really heavy, it's not easy work, and then it's also difficult on the higher levels of the house. And so, like you said, a little bit of thinking, a little bit of planning will make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Well, that is all the time we have for today. So keep in mind, do a little bit of work now, save yourself a lot of pain in the future. And of course, we're going to keep you updated on what happens with Josh as he builds his hurricane house. I can't wait to see it when it's all done. Thanks for joining us, Josh. We'll see everybody next time.